Mr. Ron Zaras. Again, thanks for coming to hang out, dude.
It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, I'm a little bit frustrated. I just took apart this differential. I sent you a picture of it, and there's a pin that basically goes through the center of the differential. You know that it locks everything together, right? This new differential I bought on eBay, the pin is just like super loose, flopping around, total junk. So I'm back to square one. Mercedes, the BMW Mercedes is up in the air, no differential. It's not good, man. Nothing works.
But you got it running at a certain point. Like I've seen video of it making a pull.
Yeah, it rips, dude. It absolutely rips.
That's amazing. I mean, at least you got to that point. Now you're bitten. It's not like it's just like, I'm putting this away. I'm done.
Yeah, it rips really well. It runs great. I started up and I was talking to Burroughs, Mike Burroughs, and he's like, dude, if that thing even has like the semblance of overheating, you have to turn it off no matter what. Because I'm not like a BMW guy, right? I guess the cooling systems. I knew the cooling systems were bad, but I didn't realize it was like that critical. But the best thing ever was starting it up, running it, and then this with any project, when the radiator fan kicks on, it works. It's like that's like the biggest success you could ever have. Is when the radiator fan works and you're all set and the thing kicks on and then it turns off and you're looking at. I had to write on I had my little laser gun thing, the little temperature sensor, and I'm running up front. I'm lasering where the sensor is because I retrofitted like a electronic thing into the instrument cluster from a different Mercedes. And it works, but it's not quite right. So I took like a little paint pen and I'm like drawing on the glass like what the temperature is at any given point. I gotta come up with a better system.
I feel like that's very on brand for that car though.
It is, yeah. It is for sure. It is for sure. But yeah, the thing it absolutely rips and it's amazing. After having all like the triple carburetor, 3D printed intake manifold, all that stuff, getting in and just turning the key and having it start with fuel injection. Dude, I'm so done with carburetors, man.
Oh God, yeah, I've never really dealt with them. I'm too young at heart to know anything about that.
Dude, I'm over it, man. I'm done. There's the fact that the first, like, I got it powered up. I heard the fuel pump turn on, turn the key, and it was like, rum. Actually, the first time there's a loose injector, so it ran like shit. But once I fixed that and I turned the key on, it was like it just purred, man. It just purred. I'm like, I cannot believe it. But yeah, the differential that's in there now is like 396, so it's super short. At 70 miles an hour, it's 4,200 RPMs, which is like it's a party, right? Yes. It's a party driving around, but it's not tolerable. It's not tolerable.
No.
Anyways, what are you working on, man? You got any projects going on? What are you doing? I know you've been busy, but there's got to be something waiting around.
Of course, there's always something waiting around. I mean, I have the Evo, the 800, 900 horsepower Evo 9.
It's amazing when you can have something with enough horsepower that you're like, it's plus or minus 100 horsepower from this. Like nobody with like 150 horsepower car can do that.
Right. It's either got zero or all.
Zero or it's somewhere between 0 and 250 horsepower somewhere.
It's a ridiculous vehicle. It's the highest power car I've ever owned and also the biggest pain in the ass I've ever owned. But it's fun. When it does work, it's absolutely a riot. And getting that dialed in, little things like, this like hybrid, almost dry sump oil pan, getting the sequential dialed in. It's really like development is so much more than build. Build is, you want to get it running, but development takes longer, takes more work. It's almost less rewarding in a way, but it's a really important phase. So that's in there. And
it's not exciting. Like the development's not exciting. You're not like, you don't do something in the development stage and then run around the garage, Right.
Where in the build phase, you spend some money, you see a difference or something finally works. In development, you spend crap tons of money and then maybe it works, maybe it doesn't, maybe it's just the same, and that just went down the drain. So I got that, and then the Integrale is still doing Italian car things. It's at a shop. It's almost done.
What is Italian car things? Just costing money? Is that like an Italian car thing?
Yes, time and money. Yeah. But it's got a brand new engine build from Mountune, brand new turbo, built bottom end. So when it's finally out, it should be really fun.
Right on. So does that have the stock? I don't even know what kind of injection there is on an Integrale. Is that like a Bosch thing or is it like Magneti Marelli?
Morelli, yeah.
Okay.
Morelli electronic fuel injection. Yeah.
That's
high tech for its day.
I'm sure it was. I'm sure it's super reliable too. I'm sure the guys at Mount Toon are super happy that you've got that going on there.
They just did the engine build. They're like, as far as putting it in, please bring that somewhere else. Yeah.
So dude, you've been busy. Like all of a sudden out of nowhere, I'm like on Instagram and I see like, you're like, hey, I'm going to Pikes Peak with Hyundai. And I'm like, what? It was like, so I'm thinking, I looked, it's been 6 months, basically. You guys had to prep. What is a phone call from Hyundai to go race at Pikes Peak? What's that like?
At first, it's like I'm definitely going to need time to think about this. And my gut reaction was no. I mean, having shot there, we shot Climb Kana there in 2018. It's an extremely intimidating place. I'd always wanted to race there. I had these fantasies of bringing my Evo up there and doing a build and all that. And then you go there, you go to the place and you drive up at pedestrian speeds. You're like, this is crazy. Like you have to be out of your damn mind to race here. And then, the kind of like journalistic side, adventurous side of my mind was like, dude, you are never going to get a chance like this ever again. Yeah. So take it. Like, what's really stopping you? And a bunch of people race there, like it's what could go wrong?
What could go wrong? Yeah. It's like, it's almost, if you walk up to a curb and you just stand on the very edge of a curb on the street, you can stand there, you can jump up and down, you can spin in circles, you do whatever you want. But if you were to go up to a 10-story building and walk up to the curb, you can't even get up there without just getting dizzy and you feel sick. And I don't really like heights to begin with, but I feel like driving a car must be the same way. Because if you're driving in even a twisty road, your favorite twisty road, it's not any different really than driving up Pikes Peak, right? It's just another twisty road, but you screw up, you're dead, so it must mess with your brain quite a bit.
It does. It's amazing what the human mind does in those kind of situations. I really like your analogy with the curb because that's very, very accurate to what it's like being up there to a certain extent. You have that in your mind, and especially if you're going up at just the speed limit and you're looking over the edge. Yeah, that's very much in your mind. The amazing thing is when you actually go and you do your practice days and the first time you drive on there, you're so focused on your braking zone, your driving line, the car, that you're really looking ahead. And the fear part is in your peripheral. So you understand it's there, but it's not dominating all your senses. Most of your focus is on the road and the driving line. And in a way, the fear it doesn't go away, but it doesn't, dominate everything.
You think that's something that everybody could put behind them? You think most people, given enough time to think about it, could put that behind them? Or is that something that you kind of gained doing other kinds of racing and stuff like that, some sort of confidence? Or is it like some sort of gene marker that you've got in your body?
It's definitely not a gene because it took some work to get over. It's really hard for me to say. I can't put myself in someone else's shoes in that way. What I will say is, in the past year and a half, I've done a good bit of rally sprints. And the place I do them, Rally Ready in Texas, has some of the narrowest stages that you'll have in the US. And that means, doing 100 plus, 110 miles an hour with branches almost clipping your side mirrors in some spots, and a jump in that kind of tight area as well. So having done about 4 of those, it really, if anything, it taught me on how to go back to 80% speed and be able to mitigate that and feel safe in a way to where, you're not pushing 100% and there's a margin that you have there. So you do have that feeling of safety. So I don't know. I think a lot of people could do it. I was just going to say, thinking about practiced.
Going through the trees, just while we're still like, you're going through the trees and they're touching the branches, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. It seems like it would almost be worse to crash there than it would be to crash at Pikes Peak. Like running into a tree at 90 miles an hour. I don't know. I think I'd rather roll down the cliff, to be honest.
It's an interesting trade-off. when you first, like upon first glance, you're like, yeah, I mean, of course, I'd rather be here than flying, an undisclosed amount of time and then, tumbling down a mountain.
Yeah.
But yeah, when you really think about the physics between the two, it's like, yeah, trees don't really move a lot.
Yeah. That's kind of like a fixed object. That's like that's the crash. You're a crash test dummy at that point.
Yep,
Exactly. The Department of Transportation doesn't throw cars off cliffs. They run them into immovable objects.
That's very true.
So you said no at first, or you said you had to think about it at first?
I told them I got to think about it.
Did they try to convince you? And they were like, oh, we'd really love you to do this. What was kind of the plan? Like, why did they want you to do this, and how did they get you to do it?
FCP Euro is an online retailer of OE, OEM, genuine aftermarket, and performance parts for European cars. From BMW to Porsche, Volvo, and more, their catalog is a one-stop shop with over 275,000 unique products, including expert assembled kits to make shopping simpler. Actively building out the Volkswagen, Audi, and Porsche catalogs, from current to our favorite classics, including the Mark I Scirocco freeride car, they are working to have every part you need for all of your cars. Plus, every product they sell is backed by a lifetime replacement guarantee. Even wear items like wiper blades, brake pads, and oil filters, lifetime warranty. With the opening of their distribution center in Mesa, Arizona, FCP Euro is now shipping parts from both coasts, serving most of the country in 3 days or less with free shipping. We at Overcrest have been working with FCP Euro for years and can vouch for them. They are real people who are passionate about what they do and the cars we love, while making sure to put you, the customer, first. Check them out today at fcpeuro.com and take advantage of free shipping on any order over $49. AC Solutions offers complete plug-and-play air conditioning conversion kits for your classic BMW, such as the E30, E28, and E24, and soon-to-be Porsche. Featuring OEM quality components with period-correct finishes and materials, their products are designed as a drop-in upgrade to your old factory system, but with the performance of modern technology. Their products stem from hands-on design and development with a deep knowledge and passion for these vehicles. They're designed by enthusiasts for enthusiasts and come complete with a full warranty and quality instructions mirroring those of a factory manual. Check them all out at acsolutions.co. That's acsolutions.co.
So we had been working with Hyundai for quite some time. We first really worked with them when we were still at Hoonigan. When I say we, that's myself, Vinny, and Scotto. We went to the 24 Hours of Nürburgring in 2019. And, we joked around saying, hey, put us in one of your race cars. Put me in, coach.
Yeah.
Let us do this. And little did we know that the guy that kind of leads that motorsport program, he kind of held on to that. And he was always kind of looking out for an opportunity. So we had gone through all these different options of potentially doing some TCR stuff, some touring car things. And then all of that culminated to us doing a season in TC America in SRO. But a bit of that was contingent on like a really, really big program with Pikes Peak. Because that was their big push for the Ioniq 5N this year. And they had a 4-car team, and they were looking for a fourth driver that could drive, but also could tell a story. That's kind of a unique position to be in. So really, that's kind of what spurred the opportunity. And I felt that if I said no to this, our TC seat would also be in question. So I was like, all right. Yeah, I really want to race touring cars. So I guess I'll do this.
Yeah, you say no. I mean, they might not come back, man.
Right.
Right. You just kind of gotta say yes to that opportunity. Yeah. So I haven't, the exposure I've had to Pikes Peak is either through, I see some stuff that Jeff Zwart does because I follow him, and BBI. And then that was it. That's all I would ever see, because I don't follow it that much. I'm really interested in it. I should probably get out there and go see it. I was going to go out there and go see it. And then I got pulled over. I was scouting the first Overcrest rally in the Mississippi River Valley. And I was going to Pikes Peak like the next week, and I got pulled over, and they go, "You don't have a driver's license." So which came from getting a ticket in Colorado that I never even knew I knew, but I forgot. I thought I paid it. Maybe I didn't. And they sent like a suspend this guy's license thing. So I never got to go. I'd really like to go. But the biggest exposure I had was the storytelling from you this year. That was the biggest exposure I had to Pikes Peak, which I think is really cool.
That's awesome to hear. I appreciate that.
I want to get your thoughts on the car though. And on Hyundai in general. Let's start with Hyundai in general. I think Hyundai, in terms of all the manufacturers that I'm watching, there's a few that really interest me. Rivian really interests me quite a bit. I love what they're doing. I think Tesla just doesn't interest me anymore, but Hyundai is really, really interesting. I think what they've done, and we had a guy from Hyundai PR on the podcast a long time ago, and I remember it was before the prototype car came out, and he said, and I think the Taycan had recently come out or was announced it was coming out. He's like, we want to take on Porsche. And this was a little bit earlier, like this is before all this cool N stuff came out, but he knew that stuff was coming out, but we didn't know. Like you didn't know, we didn't know, I didn't know. And but they did, and it's really cool to see that string get pulled from that statement of like we want to take on, which basically meant we want to take on some of these bigger brands. We want to be legit. Of course. And they stole the guy from BMW or whatever, and they started coming out with this cool EV stuff, and all of a sudden it's like, wow, Hyundai is actually pretty damn cool. What do you think of Hyundai as the brand and what they've been doing lately?
To me, if I were to make a comparison, I think they're having a moment right now that was really similar to Subaru and Mitsubishi when they started getting on the world rally car scene. When they first came on there, it's like a Subaru and racing. Like what? Like isn't that just for like mountains and snow? And
don't
they're
they make
fast
the
and
Justy?
whatever.
They
like,
make the Justy, right?
Yeah, the Justy and the Legacy. Like, come on. And Mitsubishi had the Lancer. And even before that, they had the Galant. You know, and there were these cars that were like economy cars, very practical. You go and get groceries in them. And somebody at some point at either brand said, you know what? No, like they could be practical, they could be economical, but they can also have fire under the hood, power and handling and all this stuff and be unexpected. And that was, to me, growing up and watching rally, that was the coolest thing on the planet. It's these cars that shouldn't be fast. They shouldn't be driven this way, but they are. And they're these giant killers. And I feel like this is a very similar time for Hyundai in a really early phase. Like you mentioned, they brought on Albert Biermann, a legend in BMW, lead on a ton of M cars, all the M cars that we really love. And they brought him on and he said, yes, and let's make this a cool, dynamic brand. So that's that exciting moment right now. They still have so much history, especially in the US, to kind of overcome. But I think they're making a lot of moves, a lot of strides with the Pikes thing, dominating in TCR across the US. And in Europe, dominating in rally. They're really impressing a lot of people with their cars. It's not
the same company. Like I was thinking before, maybe let's say 5 years ago, Hyundai was the Tiburon. It was the original Hyundai Pony, which was not a good car. It was the Hyundai. They did go to Pikes Peak in like 92 with the Scoop, like the sports coupe or whatever it was. And then they took the Tiburon there a few times and they got second place. I mean, Tiburon wasn't a bad car, but it's not the car when you went to a meet that you wanted to see, right? You didn't go to a parking lot and go, dang, look at that thing. Just never happened.
I hope I see a Tiburon. You're like, I hope I see a Civic Si in blue,
No.
Yeah, exactly.
No, you could easily stereotype the type of person that was going to get out of the car. For sure. You could easily do it. But now things seem pretty dope. The pony concept. I talked to the guy that had a lot to do with the pony concept. He doesn't speak very good English. I wanted to have him on the podcast, but he was concerned about that. And man, their designs are they're just absolutely killing it. It's different. I feel like most cars now look like a New Balance sneaker, and I feel like a New Balance sneaker is kind of like this amalgamation of every sneaker ever made, and it's just a white New Balance sneaker. It's just there, right? It's just a blob of a shoe, and I feel like that's what. Yeah, and I feel like that's what most manufacturers are now. None of them have any iconic things that they're doing. Like, that is this brand's thing. This is their car. It really stands out. I mean, Volkswagen used to do cool stuff, but I mean, an Atlas or a Tiguan, a big Tiguan, wherever that thing. Taos. That's it. What are we doing? Yeah. What happened? Like, BMW is gone to me. I have a lot of trouble getting interested in what any manufacturer are doing these days. It just nothing clicks with me. But these new designs are pretty rad. However, the car itself as an EV, I have, and here's the thing: I haven't driven one. I've driven some Model 3 Performance. That's the only real EV that I've driven.
Okay.
Were you skeptical going into getting into that car and driving it as an EV? Did you overcome any emotions on that?
CSF Cooling has always been at the forefront of quality products for a fair price. With a rich history stretching over 7 decades, they provide the best high-performance and OEM Plus cooling systems on the market today. CSF offers over 3,000 different cooling applications for the most popular makes and models on the road today. From classic copper brass radiators for Land Cruisers, Jeeps, and Datsuns, to vintage 80s Mercedes, BMW, and Audi and Porsche platforms, all the way up to new vehicles. Check out their expanding Classic Series lineup, and be sure to check them out at csfrace.com or on social media. Petrolbox is a monthly service made specifically for the automotive enthusiast. Each month, they carefully select items including tools, detailing supplies, apparel, garage gear, stickers, and publications to be sent right there to your doorstep. It's a curated selection of the latest and greatest gear in the industry, and there's actually 2 different levels of subscription to choose from. The Petrolbox Basic costs less than $20 a month, while the Petrolbox Premium gets you even more gear for $39.95 a month. Check them out at mypetrolbox.com and be sure to use the code OVERCREST at checkout to get $6 off your first month.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you look at the size of it and immediately like something the size of an SUV crossover type thing. You're not thinking, oh, this is a performance vehicle. You're thinking, yeah, it's going to handle big. It's going to be sluggish. Like it's just not going to be a dynamic drive. And look, I preface this all with saying, yeah, I very, proudly wore a Hyundai hat and I raced for them. And I'm still doing stuff with them. But I think it's very telling that you get videos across the internet with guys like Chris Harris, Misha Charudin, who is the Nürburgring guy, Matt from the Smoking Tire. Anybody that drives this thing is just blown away. And the same exact thing happened to me. It's the same reaction. You go in with kind of lowered expectations. You think EV, big, heavy, understeery, not very dynamic. I got in the car, and truth be told, the menu is insane. You have so many options that at first it's overwhelming. But once you get your settings down and you get kind of the dynamics and the safety features figured out, everything you want turned off, it drives very similar to a rally car to me in that you want to chuck this thing. You want to throw it around. It has throttle lift oversteer very aggressively. And then you could save it by getting back in the throttle and having the front wheels pull you around. You could be full rear drive. You could be 30-70. You could be 50-50. You can change that on the screen as you go. It reminds me of like the center diff controller on the STI when you first had that, the gravel mode on the Evo when you first had that. And then of course the power. The power is just nuts. I mean, EV power, I'm sure you've driven some fast EVs, Tesla Plaid, anything like that. That's no longer a major party trick, but it's still cool to have that just immediately
like, what is it,
savage.
600 horsepower, something like that?
Yep, 641.
Yeah.
Yep, up to 641 because they have the little overboost button. So between the power and the handling, the weight's down super low. It's not a light vehicle. It's 4,700 pounds, and it punches above that weight class very, very well. It's a shocking car to drive.
Some of these things, it almost seems like it's too good. Like I think a lot of the best cars out there are kind of identified by their idiosyncrasies of what's wrong with them rather than what's right. I think the 911 is the easiest example of that to pick out and choose. Do you think that despite the performance, it lacks character because it's too good? Or is it just, I feel like it lacks character, but I don't know if that's because it hasn't earned it yet, because it's so fresh, and that character will come, right? It'll come as the chapters are written for Hyundai and the car, or if the car is just too good and it'll never have character. I'm not sure yet. I think that story, remains to be written. I don't know.
Yeah, I think in a way, character is defined by the user, right? I mean, to some people, character is the want to have your own starting sequence, non-traditional, like, you got to pump the gas twice, hold the key in a certain spot, got to turn all the accessories off. And I love that stuff too. Trust me. I mean, that adds to the character of a car. This, to me, it's very hard for an electric motor to have character because they all behave almost the same way. But the chassis does show signs of life, if I could put it that way. Like it really, there's something in it. There's something in the way the car behaves, handling wise, that really makes you think, wow, there was kind of a madman allowed to engineer this thing and pass through a couple, like, legal or safety or whatever to be like, dude, what? Like the average consumer having access to a car that behaves this way is kind of wild. And to me, the chassis, the way it behaves in corners, it does have a bit of character to it.
I always kind of wonder if, I'll liken this to when people were saying that the new Prius was cool, right? I'm getting these DMs that like the new Prius, it's actually pretty cool. Is it because everything's going away and we know it? Like, is it because we know and we can feel that this combustion engine stuff, it is going away, right? It's going to happen and we have to adapt. So are we just starving and going into the refrigerator and eating the only thing that's there? Is that part of our psyche? Are we just like, I'm trying to move on too. Like, I don't want to lose what I love. So I'm willing to accept and evolve. Is that what we're doing, or is it genuinely good?
There's a bit of that for sure. I mean, you want the future to have some kind of promise, right? And the way I kind of look at it is I don't think, ICE will be phased out within our lifetime. So we'll always have those cars too. What I really like about it and the outlook that I have is I find it very, very exciting that a company cares enough to put guys like Albert Bierman, to put things like launch control, diff split, e-diff settings on the back. They don't have to. That's not going to sell to the masses. That's not going to get you huge numbers. I mean, Tesla's doing great and they don't have to do any of that stuff. They just made it fast in a straight line and that's it. So to me, it's exciting that there's the effort, there's the engineering, there's somebody saying, hey, these dynamics, these options, this is important. Whether we go all electric someday, whether hybrid is really the answer, whether hydrogen's the answer, I really appreciate companies that just care about the enthusiast and still find that core really important, and they want to speak to them and do that.
Yeah, there's always somebody there that loves something, right? There's got to be a guy that loves it. And it's good to know that somebody at Hyundai feels that way. So you got the phone call. You decide you're going to do this. What is prep like? Are you immediately hopping on Gran Turismo or how is this working?
Yeah. And it wasn't 6 months. It was 2.
Oh, my God, dude. Oh, my God.
Yeah,
okay.
Because it came up pretty quick. So, yeah, the first thing I did was Assetto Corsa, simulator. You download Pikes Peak and you get whatever your favorite, GT3 Cup car or anything like that. And you just crash third corner. And then you're like, okay,
I'm dead.
Maybe. Yeah. And then you're like, there's 100.
You should have gotten like a patch where it was like the Grand Theft Auto thing is like, you are dead or you're dead or wasted. Every time.
God, that would be even more disheartening. And, there's 156 of these. And, the thing that kind of carried me through in a way was I had taught myself the Nürburgring because we were having a track day on there. And I did this thing on the sim where I would just do lap after lap after lap, watch onboards, watch videos where they give you tips, and then lap after lap after lap. And then eventually it starts clicking. And then before you know it, you're like anticipating corners instead of being scared of them. So with Pikes, I broke it down to 5 different sections that are like the big, like, do not mess up here. Do not crash here. I picked those 5 and they're kind of evenly spaced across the mountain. And then everything else is just stringing it together, knowing those waypoints. So between that, downloading onboards, I spent pretty much all those months where if I wasn't driving it on the sim, I was watching it right before bed, so I kind of have this thing where if you watch something right before you go to sleep, your brain kind of continues, relearning that, whatever. And then you go back and you do it again.
That's why you whisper stuff in your girlfriend's ear as she falls asleep, or your wife's ear. You have the most amazing husband ever.
Yes.
He's so handsome.
He needs so many car parts. It's spending on them is A-okay. So, obviously learning the mountain was a major step, and that was one of the most intimidating parts.
What about
and
diet?
What I have to say is, Hyundai also gave me a ton of seat time in the car. So they have these proving grounds in the Mojave Desert, the Hyundai California proving grounds. And so we would go out, I would test in the car, go back, engineers would look at data, we would try different tires, we would try different brake pads. And before we even showed up at the mountain, I had a very healthy amount of seat time in the car to get myself comfortable.
So did you have to do anything with your diet as well? I mean, because it's like the elevation is the thing. Did you go up into elevation? Did you have to change the way you eat? I mean, it's a fairly athletic thing, I imagine.
It is. It really is. And a lot of it is not even physically, because it is only a 9 to 11 minute run on average. So it's not necessarily endurance, but it's brain power. It's having the focus and being able to keep that. So first thing I did, listen, I enjoy a beer or a cocktail a lot. It helps with creative, it helps with writing, relaxing, whatever. I cut it out. I cut all booze out, in the months leading up, just, trying to be as clear-headed as possible, drinking a ton of water, eating a bit healthier, obviously exercising too, but not going too insane. It was more important to me to spend time on learning the mountain than it was on being physically fit. And then the other one is acclimating to being there, so anytime we knew we were going to run there, I would show up a week in advance. So, by the time I was there, by the time I had to run, it wasn't like my body was just getting used to that. Because during your runs, you're going from 8,000 to 14,000 feet very rapidly, right? 14,000, I want to say at that altitude or elevation, the FAA requires pilots to have some kind of onboard air, right? So you definitely want your body to be used to it. But also performance advantage, we do have oxygen in the car that's being piped in through my nose.
Okay. So it's not like blowing through the vents or anything. You don't have extra oxygen.
I look like like an 80-year-old at a casino, sitting with the oxygen tank and the things in the nose, just, pumping away. But,
a preview of things to come.
Yeah. Or for those that have watched Dune too, it's pretty much that kind of little device.
Yeah, way cooler. Tell me about getting to the event and what it was like to show up as an actual competitor to an event you probably idolized for most of your enthusiast life.
I think the biggest moment for me was in the lead up, in the 2 weeks leading up to it, you have a lot of practice runs. They open the mountain at 4 a.m. because it is a public road. Gates open at 4 a.m. and you can practice till 8:30. The second 8:30 comes around, they have to close it, open it back up to the public.
Yep.
So you have 2 weeks of running in sections. You run lower section, middle, upper. And, first time on the mountain's insane. We could go back to that in a second. But the biggest realization I had was, the times they get published. Early practices just get sent to competitors, but later ones get sent to other people. And I had a couple guys message, like Tanner Faust, Jeff Zwart, guys like that are telling me, hey, I saw your times looking pretty good. And I'm like, what? Don't look at my times.
Get out of here, dude.
Look at other people's times. And it made me realize that, everybody's on the mountain at the same time and everybody's looking, they're running the same course. And that's crazy. I'm running the same practice as Ramon in the Ford, multiple Le Mans winner, one of the most accomplished road racing drivers. And I can compare my times to his, however much faster they are.
Yeah.
But every single day you have this comparison and you're like, damn, I'm among the greats. This is crazy. Like, how did I even get here? It's an incredible feeling.
You're just like, I am so cool. Like,
No, definitely not.
No, of course, dude. Yes. I mean, not in the way of like I'm better than anyone, but like I feel really cool right now. You know what I mean? Like, it's
where
dope,
else
dude.
in the world would this happen? Yeah,
it's so cool, and it's in a place where, I mean, Pikes Peak, some Formula One races, Le Mans, Daytona. I mean, the heritage of Pikes Peak is unbelievable and undeniably cool, and you know, it's I'll feed your ego a little bit and say, dude, you were a part of one of the most impressive and heritage-filled events that exists in motorsport. So kudos to you, man. That's amazing.
Thank you. It means a lot, and it's definitely not lost on me. I mean, it's like I said, when I really thought about it, there was no other option than saying yes, because when else does something like this happen? And especially like the team is the Brian Herta Autosport team, you know, Hyundai factory. So Brian Herta is there, a legend in his own right. Yeah. And he's talking to me, you know, saying, hey, you know, this is looking good. Let's work on this. Paul Dallenbach, a teammate. Robin Shute, another teammate. Randy Post, another teammate. All these guys giving me tips and what to look at, what to do, what not to do. It's it's pretty peak.
Was it overwhelming to get all these tips? You're just like, oh my God, I can't. How did you adapt to, you know, how did you get better with all that?
I don't know. Maybe they sensed it, or maybe it was just the way it worked, but they all came at the perfect time. It wasn't an overwhelming thing to where it's a fire hose of info and then, you know, go off and do it. It was bit by bit, you know, like going and practicing lower. They're like, hey, this section's, you know, not that scary. Like you could push a bit here. You can gain a lot of time, you know, just look out for this spot. Oh, there's a little bit of ice here. Be careful. So it wasn't overwhelming.
The weather didn't look great.
No. Oh my God. On the race day, like on the day, it was perfect. Like the best you could ask for. But the lead up and some of the practices, fog, rain, ice, wind. Yeah. A lot of scaries.
Yeah. So what is it truly like to drive this? What does it feel like to drive up Pikes Peak?
Yeah, it's incomparable. I mean, all the sections have their own characteristics, right? Lower section feels like a canyon road or a tarmac rally. It's great. It's so fun. The more you get used to it, the more you can really start pushing. That's where it's like the ultimate tarmac rally. Then you pass the little braking hut, Glen Cove. And that's where, you know, 2 turns in, there's a right-hander. It's about 100 plus miles an hour. That takes you above tree line and you're just staring at the sky. That's where things start getting really real. You're like, whoa, okay, I got to like really respect this place. Start checking up on my braking zones. And then the top section is where it just starts looking like Lord of the Rings. You know, you get these craggy mountaintops. You get a place called Devil's Playground. You got spots bottoming out. You got frost heaves that make the road all undulated. So there's nothing that I've driven or experienced that can even come close to comparing in that feeling.
You know, it must be pretty bad when they start naming stuff after Satan.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you wish you could have driven the gravel section?
I do. I really, really do. And I didn't think I would. And after running it in the tarmac, it seems like it's something that would be really, really fun. The interesting thing about that is, you know, inherently you think, oh, gravel, loose surface, more sketchy, more crazy. But if you talk to the guys that have run both surfaces, they'll tell you right off the bat, fully paved is the scariest it's ever been because average speeds are so much higher. That the gravel days, you could chuck it in sideways, and if something doesn't really go right, you've got a ton of leeway to fix that problem.
Right. You can let it oversteer and let it just stop itself. And I love gravel driving.
I do too.
As you know, it just takes the driving dynamics down so much. They're not the same. I can't say it's just like driving on tarmac, just slower, because it's not. Right. But you can feel the extremes of everything. You can feel the lift oversteer. Like driving my 911 on gravel is one of my most favorite things to do. I
gotta experience that someday because that sounds and looks like an absolute blast.
Let's do it. Next time I come out and the 911's there, we can go find some gravel.
Oh, yeah.
California doesn't have enough gravel, dude. Me and Michael Gideon went driving around over by Ojai looking for gravel. There's not enough gravel. You got to come out on the rally,
go a little
man.
lower.
You got
to.
You got to come out on the OC rally. We'll find some gravel for your street car.
You guys seem to spot the gravel quite frequently. I respect that.
There's a lot of. We just did. I just scouted Arkansas, and I spent 6 days, 10 hours a day driving around every single road I could find.
Out in the Ozarks.
Out in the Ozarks, yeah. Out in the Ozarks, lots of gravel out there. Some good, some tragically bad. Vibrated a brake line loose, fell off, had no brakes. That was a good time. That was
fun.
That was, yeah. That's not what you want on Pikes Peak. Anyway, so what did you learn? How are you a different driver from when you started till like 2 months ago, even 3 months ago when you first started doing this? How are you a different driver?
Yeah, it's the restraint thing. I was always I found the most fun in taking a car to 110% and slidey, oversteery, dramatic. Maybe it wasn't the fastest, but it's the most fun and the best for camera. And Pikes really taught me the art of restraint and finding that window of 85% push, which is a lot harder than going 100. You still want to go fast. You still want to set a good time, but you want to give yourself some margin in case one corner is more loose than the other. There's parts where, especially in the morning when you run, the sun isn't hitting certain sections. So you'll go through a corner, and within the same corner, you got a lot of grip on turn in, zero grip mid corner because it's in the shadows.
Yep.
Still cold, still dusty. And then corner exit, you have moderate grip. So it was being able to judge corners, grip levels, mitigating risk, but still going fast, I think was absolutely the most valuable thing I learned.
I think that's a lesson you'll be able to take to almost any motorsport that you do from here on out.
I think so.
Moderation is key to, think about Formula One even. Obviously, sorry, man, you're not racing Formula One, but
no.
But what those guys do is they're not going flat out the whole race. To us, it looks like they are, but there's those guys are so good that they're going, I'm going to go 84% instead of 86% or 97 instead of 96. They have that much minutia with the concept that you're talking about. But I think if you go do any kind of other racing, this concept applies of taking care of the car, taking care of your body, taking care of your gas, your tires, everything.
I completely agree. And it was interesting. We were testing back to back, myself and Paul Dallenbach in the same car. And, I would have higher tire temps and higher tire wear, but similar times. And they were like, yeah, you drive like that, you're not going to have much tire left by the top of the mountain. So you learn that there's ways of driving more delicately, but having the same speed. Feels like you're going slower, but you're actually going faster. It was such a mind-blowing thing for me.
Well, that's learning yourself rather than learning the car, I think, even,
Yeah, a bit for sure.
Yeah. So so you had your car wasn't, it had a bunch of safety equipment in it, but it was a stock otherwise, like a production car. And there was two of those, and then there was two super wild looking cars.
Exactly.
Did you get to drive that other car? Did they let you drive that on mountain, off mountain, anywhere? Not yet.
Not yet. I want to ask them too. During, I really wanted to get in there and try it out, whatever. But it's funny when you're doing test sessions, when you have days with the car, there's so much that you need to extrapolate from the car from that one day with the drivers that really, I was so busy with my own car that there wasn't really even the time to get in the fast ones. And even so, even if there was, I would hate to be the guy that, hit a curb too hard or just go a little too ham and tear a corner off. And it's like, whoa, now we're really on our back foot, not even in your own car.
So are these cars ones that they'll bring back next year, or will they have something new? Do they use them again and again, or is it something that you can take out now? Now that I think
that's a good question.
I think right now this is the plea for Hyundai to let Ron drive the car. I want to know I just want to know what he thinks. Like, let's go, Hyundai. He's got to drive the car. Put him in it. Let's go. Let's do something.
I mean, now that it's done and dusted, you know, the 2 time attack cars, I do believe they're trying to take one of them to Nürburgring. I don't know if I'm blowing up their spot on that one, potentially. And then, I mean, they did the job, right? Now it's time to do some marketing, bring them to some other spots. Exactly. I would love to take them to a place like Button Willow that I'm really comfortable with, or Streets. Any one of those spots, I think would be really cool to try that car out.
Is Button Willow the one they're selling, or is that Sonoma? Which one's Willow Springs?
Willow Springs. Yep.
Willow Springs is getting sold. Yeah. Man, sad. I wonder if it's who's going to buy that? What's going to happen with that track?
Yeah, there's a lot of offers, a lot of people looking to buy it. I hope it doesn't become like a thermal type situation. I would. It's such a staple in California track culture that I hope whoever goes in can improve the facilities a bit, but keep it open for all.
Yeah, I hope it doesn't turn into a country club.
Yeah,
you know, that would be the end of all things. So what do you want to do now, man? What's next? So Pikes Peak isn't the peak, right? What's next? What do you want to drive? What do you want to do?
I mean, I hope it's not the peak. You know, already thinking about what's possible for next year up there. You know,
man. You are hooked. It's over.
Dude, it's bad. It's bad. I don't want to put it out yet, but you know, on my run, due to a couple of different circumstances, I ended up getting a record. So now I'm a Pikes Peak record holder on my rookie run. It's crazy. So
you crushed it. It was the Tesla, right? Did you crush the Tesla? Is that what you beat?
Yeah. So it's a couple different ones. So overall production EV is the fastest time in that bracket was a Tesla. Yeah. Tesla Model 3 set by Blake Fuller. That was an 1102. I ran a 1049. The production EV SUV electric class didn't have a record, so I set that one. But also there's production EV truck, which Rivian was out there setting their time with their test driver, Gardner Nichols. And I think they ran a 1053, something like that.
In a truck. Good Lord.
In a truck. Yeah. 1,000 horsepower though. Lots of crap tons of power. That thing was insane.
Did you see the video of that thing crashing through a barrier?
No.
Like the government was doing testing on, you know, bollards and barriers now that all these trucks weigh like 5,000 pounds.
Right.
Like they can't stop that, or a Hummer or any of these new EV trucks, anything. They're so heavy.
Much mass.
Yeah. Just imagining the mass of that going up the hill with 1,000 horsepower is.
Yeah. It's sketchy. It's scary.
It's pretty crazy.
But I would say my goal now, I would love to go back. There's a different record I have in mind, but this early, I don't want to say it yet because I don't want someone starting to build a car towards that to beat me. But really a huge dream of mine. There's 2. I would love to drive some kind of world rally car or just do a full stage rally. And then 24 hours of Nürburgring. That's always been, that track is a magical place for me. Somewhere I've always wanted to race, drive competitively. The more I drive, the more I understand that I'm not ready for it yet. But
why not? Why aren't you ready? What do you think you're lacking?
Experience. It's, you know, the 24 hours is a crazy place, especially if you're not in a GT3 level, like top level car.
Yep.
Because you're doing your thing, you're driving, you're trying to drive as fast as you can. It's nighttime, there's jumps, there's loose surfaces, there's fast sections. And then you could be doing everything perfect. And then, you know, a AMG GT3 is right on your tail, flashing their lights. Everything's, you know, flashing. Get out of the way. You don't want to ruin their race. You know, that's a multi-million-dollar racing program.
Yeah.
And you don't want to be the guy on the highlight reel that, like, you know, ruined the Manti Racing 911. You know, they were about to win, and this idiot,
this asshole Ron Zaras, this journalist, fucked everything up.
Yeah. And then, you know, the whole staying up late thing and not getting a ton of sleep at nighttime, and there's so many factors there. But it's still an absolute dream of mine to race there.
Yeah, I think endurance racing would be a great next step for you. I think that would be interesting because it seems like kind of, you know, circuit racing with, you know, that lasts like an hour or 2 hours or whatever it is, and seems really cool. But when you go compared to like Pikes Peak or endurance racing, it just doesn't seem like to have the romance of endurance racing. Is there something that you can, is there like a 12-hour thing that you can do first? Can you do like 12 hours of Daytona or Sebring or something? And then does Hyundai race there? Can you do something with them?
I don't know. I believe they do a couple of those. I would look into doing some lower level stuff like Lucky Dog. Thunder Hill has a couple endurance races. So some local stuff to get myself ready for that for sure. And also even in Germany, they have a couple of series, the VLN and RCN. You could do 6 hour, you could do 12 hour. There's some shorter races there that can get you worked up to that.
That you're going to have to work on your physical endurance for.
Yeah,
that is going to be
I gotta start working out.
Yeah.
Oof.
Well, dude, congratulations, man.
Thank you.
I'm really happy for you. I'm happy to see. I mean, last time we talked, you were extricating yourself from another situation, and I'm really, really happy to see you flourishing and doing something cool. And yeah, good for you, dude. I'm really happy to see it. I'm here for it. I can't wait to see what else you got going on.
I appreciate that, man. Thank you. It's myself and Vinny from Hoonigan, we made a vow to each other, not in that way, to do more driving. It was something that we were, on video it seemed like we did a ton, but really we were a spectator to a lot of things, a lot of different drivers, a lot of different racing. We both really enjoy motorsports. So we said, you know what? We got to focus on doing as much driving and racing as possible as we can this year and enjoy it. We have some connections, we have some opportunities. Let's capitalize on that and let's do it. And so, we're kicking off a brand called the Driver's Era. The meaning's a bit different, but the spirit is the same. It's all about getting out there and putting miles on your car, whether it's on the track, doing road trips, just get out there and drive, get from behind the laptop or the phone screen and just enjoy the world and enjoy your car.
Well, if there's anything, that's kind of what Overcrest stands for too. So if there's anything we can do to help, I'm sure there's something we could do that's fun. And to push that feeling, that's what we're all about too, take the car. And I think if you're not out there exploring, I think what you're doing is exploring. You're exploring yourself and pushing yourself and what you want to do. That's a type of exploring. I don't want to just boil it down to just exploring means getting in your car and going to drive somewhere. But if you're not exploring something new, you're only dying. So I think it's really, really important to keep after that. And I love that. I love that what you said. If there's anything we can do to help, let us know.
I think we'll have something brewing pretty soon.
Right on, man. Thanks for coming to hang out, dude. I appreciate it. We'll catch you next time.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Cool. Take care.
Later.